When you experience a sudden financial loss, like a layoff, a market crash, or a drained savings account, your brain doesn't treat it like a math problem. It registers the event as an immediate physical attack on your life. Look at this diagram of what psychologists call the window of resilience. This zone represents your optimal psychological state, the baseline where rational thought and complex problem solving happen. But a severe financial shock violently spikes your nervous system completely out of bounds. At this spike, your sympathetic nervous system hijacks control. As we see here, the amygdala, your brain's threat detector, fires on all cylinders, while the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for logic and long-term planning, goes completely dark. This biological trauma response forces your body into survival mode. You might go into a flight or freeze state, which looks like ignoring unopened bills or avoiding your bank accounts entirely. Or you might default to a fawn response, chronically under-earning by accepting less than your worth, just to maintain a sense of safety. This is exactly why standard financial advice fails during a crisis. Telling someone in an active trauma response to open a spreadsheet and make a budget is useless. The neurological hardware required to process that logic is temporarily offline. You simply cannot access financial literacy until you establish nervous system literacy, because you cannot out-budget a biological threat response. The very first step to your financial recovery must be physiological. The math follows the regulation. The stress of losing capital is a form of grief. The brain struggles to integrate a sudden, significant change in resources, triggering an emotional cycle often reserved for the loss of a loved one. In the 1960s, psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross mapped out how humans process profound loss, establishing the widely recognized 5 stages of grief. Those stages map directly to financial loss. You start in denial, hoping the debt will resolve itself. Then comes anger at the system, followed by bargaining, making irrational deals to regain control. Next is depression, bringing a lack of motivation to fix the problem, before finally reaching acceptance, where the actual rebuilding can start. Curious, analytical tone. While you are processing at grief, your brain is highly vulnerable to the scarcity loop. When you perceive a severe lack of resources, your brain rewires its priorities, trapping you in a cycle of short-term, survival-based thinking. Behavioral economists call this tunneling. You become hyper-fixated on the immediate lack of cash. This hyperfixation exacts a heavy cognitive penalty, known as a bandwidth tax. It temporarily drops your functional IQ and forces exhausting trade-off thinking, where every minor purchase feels like a high-stakes emergency. When you understand this mechanism, you realize that poor financial decisions made during a crisis are not moral failings. They are the inevitable symptoms of a cognitive trap, and that trap has to be deliberately broken. Breaking out of that scarcity loop requires physically halting your brain's threat scanning protocols. You have to shut down the alarm bells before you even think about looking at a bank statement. Notice this visual mapping of rhythmic breathing. By expanding your breath for 5 slow seconds and then holding, you directly engage the vagus nerve. This physical action acts as a manual override, calming the nervous system and forcing your brain out of fight or flight. Simple physical grounding techniques and basic self-care build on that override. They forcefully pull your brain away from the trauma of the past and the anxiety of the future, rooting your awareness back into the safety of present-day reality. There is also a chemical deficit to address. Chronic stress and trauma actively deplete your brain's baseline levels of dopamine. To compensate for this sudden drop, people often subconsciously turn to consumerism and impulse spending as a quick, artificial way to self-soothe. To naturally rebuild that dopamine baseline without sabotaging your wallet, you replace those impulses with tiny, achievable financial goals. Completing a micro-task, like organizing a single folder of receipts, releases the dopamine your brain is craving, transitioning you out of panic and into a state ready for strategic rebuilding. With your nervous system regulated and the grief processed, your logical brain is finally back online. You are ready to execute a strategic financial reset. This diagram contrasts a limitation mindset with an optimization strategy. While a limitation focus centers on shrinking every possible expense, the optimization model prioritizes the protection and growth of predictable cash flow. The first practical step of optimization is taking a totally objective, completely shame-free inventory of everything you own and everything you owe. You need a clear, unclouded view of your assets and liabilities. From there, your immediate priority is building an emergency fund capable of covering 3 to 6 months of living expenses. This creates a dedicated safety net designed specifically to absorb unexpected shocks. True recovery relies on creating this structural financial slack. By building a buffer, you ensure that the next unexpected medical bill or car repair does not trigger another biological panic response. While debt reduction provides immediate relief, the structural goal of recovery is a financial architecture that prevents the next setback from becoming a crisis. A properly structured whole life insurance policy provides a living volatility buffer, shielding liquid wealth from external market crashes. The chart shows how this functions within a family bank strategy. Whole life insurance acts as the central financial hub. This structure provides guaranteed cash value growth, tax-advantaged liquidity, and in many states shields those assets from creditors. By utilizing policy loans, you can borrow against your own policy's cash value. This allows you to finance your recovery or capitalize on new investments without interrupting your compound growth or relying on high-interest banks. Implementing these complex financial tools and unlearning deeply ingrained scarcity habits takes time and repetition. Prioritize progress over perfection. Financial setbacks are temporarily devastating, but by mastering your nervous system first, you gain the clarity required to build permanent wealth architectures, ensuring you never have to start from zero again.